Okay, this is Flickr Browser Part 3, Material Design and the other cool stuff, Video 5. Let's continue. Okay, so the search functionality. What we can do is take a look. Android have got a page about creating a search interface. And essentially, it's giving you this functionality built in, so we don't have to create all the functionality to do the basic searching. And you can actually see that it does lots of things. You can do search suggestions, voice search even, or search suggestions that match actual results in your application data. We're just going to use a very basic interface just to become familiar with how to go about using that and implementing it. And then in future apps, we're going to expand on that functionality. Okay, so back to our app. And we'll just continue on. I'll go back into the menu search. We've got our search view set up now. So we're good to go. We can go back to our search activity and we're going to implement that searching functionality. So what we need to do is look at the code that's on Create Options button, because we want to add additional options to the toolbar at the top, and we're doing that in the menu or the toolbar type area where a menu would traditionally go. So we're going to start off, Final, Menu Item. So I'll just double click this to give us a bit more space. Menu item, search item equals menu dot find item. So we're looking for an item in the menu, r.id.search underscore item. Search underscore view, I should say. So that's our view. Then we're going to do, so we need to add a variable first, a search view. So we're going to do a private search view. This is the Android 7 widget, and we're going to call it M Search View. Then M Search View equals Search View Search Item dot Get Action View. That's going to get the basic search view that we need. Okay, now we're going to introduce Search Manager. Search Manager Search Manager equals. So we're going to create a new instance of Search Manager, and it's using our first system service. Get system service context dot search underscore service. So we're going to return the the search service that we're going to be implementing. Then we're going to implement that in our search view, search view dot set searchable info, search manager dot get searchable info, get component name. So iconified off, so m search view dot set iconified false. And we're going to set an on-text search listener, or query text listener for want of a better term. Search view dot set on query text listener. And then we're going to select on query text listener like that, and that's created a method for us. So we're going to two overrides. We've got on query text submit, which is what happens when the user has indicated they've finished typing. We've got an on query text change. Now that one's called every time literally there's an entry, there's one character that's typed on a keyboard. So we're just putting that there. We're not going to actually use the on-query text change, but the other one we are going to use is this one here, which is the on-query text submit. So what we're going to do is save what they've typed in preferences so that we can actually retrieve that elsewhere and come back and basically use that as a search query. So shared preferences, shared pref equals preference manager dot get default shared preferences, and using our current context for the application, then we're going to actually write what the result was. So shared pref dot edit dot put string. And we're going to call this a Flickr underscore query, which we haven't got that defined yet. We're going to go back and define that shortly. And we're going to save S, which is the string that was passed to us from this from the system, from the search view, and you can see that's being passed there. And we want to, at the end of that, do a commit, which sort of saves it to our shared preferences area so that we can access this data in another class. Then the other thing we'll want to do after we've done that, we want to do a clear focus, which basically sort of resolves and sort of clears the contents of the text field. Then we want to do a finish, which implicitly sort of says we've finished, and that will then close out this screen and go back to the previous one. And we want to do a return true. True meaning that we have submitted it successfully. Okay, so Flickr query, we need to change that in our base activity. So we need to add a final variable there. And that's just sort of the name of the parameter we're going to use. So we're just going to call it Flickr query. It doesn't really matter what we call it, so long as we're consistent and we call it in the places where we want to save the query to shared preferences, and also in the places where we want to retrieve it. So back to search activity. Okay, that's now fixed. And on query text change, we'll leave that as return true because we won't essentially do any processing for that. Okay, we need to add that. And then the other thing I'm going to add here is add another listener for a close event. So it's search view dot set on close listener new search view. You can see unclosed listener selected there, so I'll just press enter and it's creating the method for us. We want to change that, overriding close, and we're going to put finish, which invokes the finish sort of method, standard method for this screen, and then we're going to return false. Okay, we should be good to go. Now looking back at our searchable information again, there is some context. We need to specify a searchable configuration, which is an XML file that configures some settings for the search dialog or widget. So we've got a couple of things we need to set in there, so we need to go ahead and create that file. So to do that, we're going to go back and open our project again and go up to the RES folder. We need to create a new folder for XML. We're going to select directory and select XML. Then we're going to do new in the XML folder. We're going to create a resource file called searchable.xml. And I'm going to delete what's in there at the moment, and I'm going to make that searchable. And we're going to select the first one, which is Android. We're going to add a label. And we'll just call that search query, and we'll use our Alt Enter again. And we'll call that searchable label. Then we also need to add a hint. A hint is that a little bit of text you see showing up in a field, which gives you a hint of what to type, which then disappears as you start typing. So we're going to call that one, let's put enter photo tags, because this is what we'll see on the screen in that field. And again, I can do an Alt Enter, and we'll call this one searchable hint. Okay, and that's it. That's the only two parameters we're going to actually specify at this time for searchable. Now we need to go into our manifest file, and we need to tell that screen to use that searchable bit of information, so it knows that it's actually configured for the searchable property, and also it's going to be using that searchable sort of system service. So what we need to do is we need to go to our activity for search, and we basically go straight in, and after this metadata we need to add a couple of things. We need to add an intent filter which tells Android we're going to be using that searchable service. So we're going to type intent filter action Android name equals Android.intent.action search in uppercase, and again, case is always important whatever you're typing something like this in. And we're going to type category, Android name again, Android.intent.category default, category.default again in uppercase. Okay, so that tells Android that we're going to be using that service. Whoops, let's fix that up on the end. And then we need to tell it to also use that metadata for that file that we just created. So that's the searchable XML file. So metadata, Android name, android.app.searchable. And the resource at XML, that's the folder rather, / searchable, like so. So it will now know, the system service will know automatically now to use that XML file to sort of grab the data that it needs. Now in this case, we've only got a very simplistic bit of information in that file, but you can put all sorts of parameters in there down the track to enhance that and do whatever you like for the search. Okay, I'm going to stop this video here. In the next one, we're going to enhance main activity so that it has got the facilities so that when we click on this search icon button, it invokes the search. So I'll see you in that next video.